How many sets per muscle per week should you be doing to build your best body? Now, this is a topic where there seems to be a lot of confusion, mainly because there is a boatload of contradicting advice that litters the internet. We've got some studies that show that more sets is better for building your best body, and some studies that show that fewer sets is better. We've got examples of guys, including pro bodybuilders, who have built their best bodies with more sets and some with fewer sets. So in this video, we're going to approach all of this evidence with an open mind to help you decide how many sets is best for you to build your best body. Now, let's take a look at the research first. Back in 2017, a meta-analysis was published that has been referred to as the Training Volume Bible, where they came to the conclusion, like, with the research we have up to this point, we really don't know where the upper limit is, where like how many sets you can perform and still continue to make gains. There's studies that showed that 45 sets, the subjects were still making gains, and a recent study was just published that showed that 52 sets, subjects were still making gains there. So we don't know the upper limit. Yet we also have research that shows that after just 4 sets for a muscle group per week, you're making most of your gains. So anything after that 4 sets, the gains that you're making get smaller and smaller and smaller. So you got to decide to yourself, like, if I'm making most of my gains with like just over 4 sets or around 10 sets there, do I need to do more just to squeeze out like the most minuscule of gains if that's possible? So that is something for you to decide there. But the authors of that meta-analysis used that advice, that the studies that they had there, the evidence that they had in front of them, that most of your gains are going to come from fewer sets, but you can still continue to, there's no upper limit on how much you can make gains. They're like, all right, the sweet spot based on all of this evidence is that if you're performing 10 to 20 sets for a muscle group per week, that's going to be the sweet spot for most people. And that was a guideline that I used myself as well as many other coaches out there. And I used it for about 5 years until I really started realizing the limitations of that meta-analysis. It was also at the time where I started incorporating more functional training into my lifestyle as well as yoga. So I had to cut my weight training down to just 4 days per week to make more room for those tasks out there, and just recognizing how that was impacting my body at the time. And now recently we've had the authors of that meta-analysis come out and say they recognize the limitations of that study, and they're really kind of going back and not really necessarily following themselves, kind of viewing training volume more as a tool to periodize their training. So they may ramp up their training volume a bit to kind of test where their limit is and then pull it back. So that's an approach you can take as well. But what they're also found with this research, and what they have been talking about a lot lately, is that these studies are just looking at one muscle group throughout that length of study there. So there are no studies that have taken a look at subjects performing 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week for all the muscle groups at that time. And basically that's what a lot of the other coaches and fitness influencers out there have taken from this research, is like, it shows that 10 to 20 sets is best for muscle gains. Let's do it for every single muscle group. That's not what the research shows. We have no research that shows that. So it could end up being detrimental for a lot of us. What the research does show is that 10 to 20 sets, or kind of finding that upper limit of how many sets you can perform and still making some gains, is great for specialized training where you're focused on one muscle group, or like one major muscle group and one minor muscle group there. So maybe like chest and triceps, or chest and biceps, something along those lines, where you are ramping up the volume with that, but then you really got to do low volume for all of the other muscle groups. That is what the research shows us. So if you're like evidence-based and you're looking at the research, it's not 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. It's like 10 to 20 sets for one muscle group for the week is what the research has shown us. So as the authors of that meta-analysis, and basically every bodybuilding study out there concludes with, is that more research is needed. Simply use that research as a guideline, apply it to your own training, and pay attention to how your body is responding. Now, that's per muscle group per week. What the research also shows is that kind of the sweet spot for how many sets for a muscle group in a workout is around 6 sets. So you don't want to be doing more than 10 sets for a muscle group in a workout, because you're going to reach that limit where it's going to be detrimental. It's pointless to be adding more sets there, because you're not getting much from it. There was one recent study that was published that used the bench press and they did 6 sets, resting for 4 minutes between sets. Every single set, you saw diminishing performance there. So they started off with 12 reps for the first set there and finished with 6 reps. So you're getting 50%, like half the reps after just 6 sets. So you're not like, your first set's always going to be your best set. You're going to gain the most from that first set. Everything that you gain from the sets afterwards is going to be less and less and less. So pushing it beyond the 6 sets in a one single workout there, you're just basically accumulating more fatigue, unnecessary fatigue that's going to just take you longer to recover from. So you're better kind of keeping the reps fewer. So if your volume is going to be more than 6 sets, 6 to 8 sets per muscle group per week, you're going to want to spread that volume throughout multiple workouts throughout the week. So you're gaining the most out of every set. I'm going to include a link down below in the description as well as a top pinned comment for a free workout plan, 4-week workout program that you can follow. It's an upper lower split where it's 5 sets per muscle group per workout, so 10 sets per week. Phenomenal split. The workouts are about an hour, just under an hour there, so pretty time efficient there. But it's a great way to spread out your training volume. So if you're training 4 days per week, that's a great setup there. You could even follow it a little bit more if you want, even 3 days if you want, up to you there. But really realizing, okay, that's 10 sets per week. And that workout's about an hour. If I want to do more than 10 sets for a muscle group per week, you're basically committing to like more training days to spread it out throughout the week, or longer training sessions. And to me, I've done that in the past. I enjoyed the camaraderie in the gym, being there for an hour and a half workout, 2-hour workouts with my bros. It was great at the time. I just got other more important things in my life right now. So that is kind of determining how not only is it going to suit my lifestyle best, but it's also going to suit my body best at the same time. Now, what I'm really noticing from the evidence out there, from like in the trenches experiences, is a lot of my fellow bros have been going from high volume training to low volume training, and they're experiencing better results, the best results that they've experienced in a long time. Will Tennyson just posted a 30-day experiment video there where he dropped from doing 16 to 18 sets per muscle group per week, training 5 days per week, down to 6 to 8 sets per muscle group per week, training only 4 days per week. He was worried that he was going to be losing all his gains. He was going to shrink and shrivel up. And he even had Jeff Nippard come on that video there. And Jeff was saying, like, you might be able to maintain your muscle on 6 to 8 sets per muscle group per week, but you're not going to gain muscle. You'd be surprised if you gain muscle. And Will ended up, not only did he look leaner at the end of this 30-day experiment there, his waist shrank, so he did measurements, so his waist was smaller, but he gained 3 or 4 pounds. Arms grew, chest grew, like he grew from doing less, and he hit personal best. He was some exercise, I think the bench press was one that he was trying for the longest time to hit a personal best on that and just couldn't do it. And now that he dropped his volume down, he was able to hit that personal best. The workouts were time efficient. He was getting into the gym in less than an hour, and he was able to give the best of himself to every single set. That was one of the biggest reasons why he switched from the higher volume to the lower volume, is that he was just burnt out. He wasn't enjoying his workouts as much. He didn't have as much focus there. So when you reduce your volume, you're doing fewer sets, you kind of sparks your enthusiasm. You know you're going to get into the gym quickly. You're going to be able to give the best of yourself to each training session. So there's lots of benefits that come from reducing your training volume. But then again, like I'm seeing so many guys gaining better results from doing fewer sets there. He also had Greg O'Gallagher, Kinobody, on there, who's been known as like a minimalist when it comes to that. And he's built a great physique with minimalist training. Other fitness coaches out there and influencers, Jeff Alberts has been doing it for a very long time. Low volume workouts, it's what he finds suits him best. Like back is what he does the highest volume on. That's 9 sets that he'll do for back in a week. But most of the body parts is going to be 6 to 8 sets for like chest and quads and hamstrings. Arms, he only does 3 direct sets because like biceps are going to get worked with back, triceps are going to get worked with chest and shoulders. Shoulders are going to get worked with chest and back as well. So it's only the major muscle groups that are getting like 6 to 8 sets per muscle group per week there. Paul Carter's another low volume guy. Alberto Nunez, another one out there who's dropped it down to 6 to 9 sets per muscle group per week there. So a lot of guys who were high volume are now dropping to lower volume and getting better results. Again, is it the novelty effect? Is it just change? That's something to consider. There's guys like Eric Helms who has done lower volume before, but he finds that his body responds best to the higher volumes. And he's mentioned that he's just at this stage of the game, late in his training career, just trying to squeeze out every last bit of muscle gain. So if doing more, he doesn't like doing more sets and higher volume there, he'd rather not do it. But he's just trying to eke out every little bit he can. And he finds that his body is responding best to it. So it really comes down to you experimenting and having that open mind. So to conclude here, like the practical applications, looking at all of the evidence out there, because like I said, there's a lot of guys who love the high volume training. They love more sets. Their body responds best to it. It's probably cut in third. Like a third of the population responds well to high volume, a third to the low volume, and a third in the middle there. So you got to kind of find your sweet spot of what your body's going to respond to best. But I'd say like the sweet spot for most people is going to be anywhere between 6 sets per muscle group per week, upwards of 16 sets at the max. 16 sets per muscle group per week. We're talking major muscle groups. If it's the smaller muscle groups like biceps and triceps, if you're doing a set of back, count that as a set for biceps as well. So 6 to 16 sets I find is going to be the sweet spot. What matters most is your lifestyle. Like how many days per week can you commit to the gym? And how long should those workouts last that's going to suit your schedule, suit your lifestyle, where you're not stressed trying to get there. You're gaining the most enjoyment out of those training sessions. It's not a hindrance. It's not something you're dreading. It's something that you look forward to that actually enhances all areas of your life. So stick with your schedule. How many sets can you fit into your training each workout, and how many can you fit into the training week there? That is what's going to allow you to be consistent with your training is always going to be what matters most. And being consistent really comes down to like enjoying your plan, feeling great from that plan, but also like having that heightened sense of awareness to how your body's responding to it. If you have some flexibility in your schedule and you're like, you know what, I want to see if I can push my upper limits there. How much volume can I handle? Maybe you just pick a muscle group or two that you want to ramp up the volume. Maybe you try it across the whole body as well and see what you respond to best. Maybe you're high volume, you're like, let's do a little experiment, do a little bit lower volume, see how I feel on it. So don't get stuck with a certain volume. Try certain ones, different ones, and see how your body responds. But another main thing is like if you're making progress on the current number of sets that you're performing per muscle group per week, there's no reason to change it at this point. Don't change until you hit a plateau, and then maybe play around with the training volume there. How many sets per muscle group per week? And again, it doesn't have to be the same for every single muscle group. You can specialize if you want to bring up a certain body part as well. So you do more sets for that lagging body part and fewer sets for the rest there. Try to balance things out. But I find for most people, it's just trying to keep things even across the board. We're trying to build our entire bodies there. So find that sweet spot for you. So there is no definitive answer. What matters most, your schedule, what suits you best, and having that heightened sense of awareness to how your body's feeling. If you're ramping up the volume, like, yeah, I can do it, but you're realizing, God, there's a lot of accumulated fatigue going on here, realizing that it may not be necessary. If you can experience most of your gains from fewer sets, why not just stick with that and feel good, not have that accumulated fatigue going on and beating yourself down and all that. It can also be an opportunity to deload at that time and then ramp up again. Lots of approaches there. There is no right or wrong. So don't get overwhelmed at what should I do? Experiment and see how your body responds to it. There is no right or wrong answer. It's going to be very individual.